across Africa, and indeed across the world. Charity often wears a uniform. It carries logos. It issues press statements. It counts numbers. It seeks visibility. But in one corner of Nigeria, philanthropy takes a very different form. Here, charity does not announce itself. It does not seek applause. It does not trend online. It happens quietly between brothers, between neighbors, between the wealthy and the forgotten. This is a story not often told, not because it does not exist, but because it does not boast. This is the story of Igbo charity, a system older than modern NGOs, stronger than government welfares, and perhaps one of the most powerful grassroots philanthropy models anywhere on earth. During the Christmas and yearly tilt seasons, Igbo land transforms, villages become cities, homes become shelters, and wealth becomes a responsibility. This is not charity as performance. This is charity as culture. To understand Igbo philanthropy, one must first understand Igbo values. In Igbo society, wealth has never been a private affair. From childhood, every Igbo person grows up hearing the same words. Onya hana nwanne. Do not abandon your brother. It is not an advice. It is not a suggestion. It is a rule. In Igbo traditional society, survival depended on community. No king ruled absolutely. No family existed alone. If a man prospered while his neighbor starved, that prosperity was considered incomplete, even dangerous. Wealth in Igbo land is not admired until it is shared. This belief survived colonialism, it survived war, it survived poverty, and today it thrives, not in boardrooms, but in villages. An Igbo man is not judged by how much he owns, but by how many lives his success touches. To be rich and ignore your people is considered shameful. To be wealthy and refuse to give is an invite to social isolation. Charity is not outsourced. It is not delegated. It is personal. Christmas in Igboland is not just a holiday. It is an event, an obligation, a reckoning. Throughout the year, many endure hardship quietly. Farmers, widows, artisans, the elderly. But Christmas changes everything. From Lagos, from Abuja, from Port Harcourt, from Europe, America, Asia, and the Middle East, Igbo sons and daughters return home. They do not come empty-handed. They bring money, food items, clothing, medicine, and hope. For many families, Christmas is the only time in the year when help arrives in abundance. It is during this season that debts are cleared, hospital bills are paid, school fees are settled, not by government, but by individuals. In Igbo land, Christmas is the great economic reset. Money flows downward, not upward, from the wealthy to the struggling, from cities to villages. This is why markets explode with activities in December, why transport fares rise, why villages come alive at night. Christmas giving is not accidental, it is expected. An Igbo person who returns home for Christmas and gives nothing will be remembered. Igbo charity does not wear one face, it wears many. There is the trader who pays hospital bills for strangers anonymously. The businessman who settles school fees for dozens of children every year without records. The woman abroad who sends money monthly to widows she has never met. They do not ask for thanks. They do not ask for photographs. They believe that the true charity must preserve dignity. Across Igboland, market unions function as welfare institutions. Members contribute weekly. During Christmas, those funds are redistributed. Food items are shared. Cash gifts are given. Loans are forgiven. No paperwork, no bureaucracy, just trust. Town hall unions play a central role. During Christmas, roads are repaired. Electricity projects are funded. Security is strengthened. Community feasts are organized, all funded by donation, mostly from individuals. This is philanthropy woven into everyday life, not centralized, not branded, but effective. By the time Christmas Day arrives, no one is truly alone in Igboland, not because poverty has disappeared, but because generosity has appeared. This system has no headquarters, no CEO, no annual report, yet, year after year, it feeds millions, educates thousands, and sustains entire communities. And this is only the beginning of the story. In a digital age obsessed with visibility, Igbo charity remains stubbornly invisible. There are no hashtags, no live streams, no viral giveaways. And this is not accidental. In Igboland, publicizing one's generosity is often frowned upon. To give and announce it is believed to reduce the spiritual value of the act. Many Igbo people believe that charity spoken aloud loses its power. So giving happens quietly. An envelope is slipped under the door. A hospital bill is cleared before the patient is discharged. A widow's rent is paid through a third party. No names, no witnesses. The dignity of the receiver matters more than the pride of the giver. In many cases, the person receiving help never knows who sent it. This animosity protects both parties. The giver avoids pride. The receiver avoids shame. It is a system built on respect. In a world where charity is often transactional, this form of giving feels almost radical. Every Christmas, money flows into Igboland from across the globe. From London, from Houston, from Johannesburg, from Toronto, from Dubai. The Igbo diaspora plays a critical role in sustaining this charity ecosystem. Many left home decades ago, but they never left responsibility behind. Some send money monthly, others wait for Christmas. During the Yellowtooth season, remittances spike dramatically. These funds do not go into lottery alone. They pay school fees, medical bills, community projects, church welfare programs. Entire villages depend on this annual inflow. For some families, Christmas support from abroad determines whether the coming year begins in stability or struggle. This is not guilt driven by giving, it is identity driven. To be Igbo abroad is to remember home. There is a trader in Onitsha. Every December he writes a list. Widows, orphans, elderly men with no pensions. He does not invite them together. He visits them one by one. By Christmas Eve, no one on that list sleeps hungry. No one knows his name outside his family. And that is how he prefers it. There is a woman in Aba, now living in Europe. She sends money every month to a rural clinic. The staff believe it's church support. It is not. She once lost a child there years ago. This is how she remembers it and uplifts the clinic. In a village near Owerri, a group of young men meet every Christmas morning. They pool their savings. By midday, every child in the village receives new clothes. They call it celebration. It is charity disguised as joy. These stories are not rare. They are routine. They are repeated in thousands of villages every single year. Charity in Igboland is not only emotional, it is economic. Christmas giving injects liquidity into local economies. Money circulates rapidly. Food sellers benefit. Transporters benefit. Tailors, barbers, caterers, and artisans all benefit. What begins as generosity becomes economic stimulation. Crime drops noticeably during this period. Desperation eases. Tension reduces. For a few weeks each year, poverty loses its grip. This is not accidental, it is structural, a system refined over generations. Igbo charity does not ask to be admired, it simply works, quietly, consistently, powerfully. But as the world changes, this ancient system faces new questions. Can it survive modern pressure? Can generosity endure economic hardship? And what happens when giving culture meets social media culture? The answer lies ahead. Across the world, charity often follows structure, foundations, endowments, international NGOs, government-backed welfare systems. These systems rely on paperwork, applications, eligibility checks. They are visible, they are measurable, they are centralized. Igbo charity is none of these things. There is no headquarters, no annual fundraising dinner, no boards of directors, yet it functions. In many African societies, charity exists, but it's only often occasional. In many Western societies, charity exists, but it is often institutional. In Igboland, charity is relational. You do not apply, you are known. Your struggles are not forms, they are stories. And during Christmas, those stories are answered. This is why Igbo philanthropy is difficult to measure. Its impact does not sit in spreadsheets, it lives in homes. For decades, government presence in many Igbo communities was minimal. Infrastructure was weak. Social welfare was absent. Promises were delayed, so the people adapted. They did not wait. They built their own safety nets. Town unions replaced councils. Market associations replaced banks. Individuals replaced ministries. Christmas became the peak moment for redistribution. What the states could not provide, the people did, and they still do. This is not rebellion, it is resilience. Igbo charity is deeply spiritual. Christianity strengthened it, but did not create it. Long before churches, Igbo cosmology taught that wealth hoarded invites misfortune, that blessing unshared attracts imbalance. Today, many believe that generosity protects families, secures legacies, and determines how one is remembered. In Igboland, funerals speak louder than resumes. A man may have owned many houses, but if his people do not mourn him, his life is considered incomplete. This belief drives giving, not fear of poverty, but fear of irrelevance. This system is not perfect. There are risks. Dependency can grow. Expectation can become burdens. The wealthy can feel pressured beyond capacity. Younger generation question tradition. Economic hardship reduces surplus. Social media tempts public performance. Yet, even with these challenges, the system endures because it is not enforced, it is internalized. Young Igbo men and women are adapting philanthropy to modern realities. Digital contributions, group savings, anonymous transfers. The form changes, but the spirit remains. Christmas is still sacred. Giving is still expected. Communities still matters. In a world searching for answers to inequality, one ancient system continues to function quietly, not because it is perfect, but because it is human. It understands shame, it understands dignity, it understands belonging. Igbo charity does not wait for policy. It does not depend on headlines. It flows from heart to hand, from success to responsibility, and every Christmas, it reminds an entire people of who they are. This is not charity as spectacle. This is charity as identity. This is Igbo philanthropy, quiet, consistent, and unmatched. Across the world, people ask different questions. They ask how societies survive hardship. They ask how communities endure neglect. They ask how dignity can exist in the face of inequality. In Igboland, the answers are not written in policy documents. They are lived. They are shared, one meal at a time, one envelope at a time, one Christmas at a time. This story was not told to glorify wealth. It was told to remind us of responsibility, because in this culture, success is not complete until it lifts others. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of home, if it reminded you of who you are, then help us keep these stories alive. Support independent African storytelling. Subscribe to 1010 Media. Like this video so the algorithm carries the story further than we could ever. Share it, not for us, but for the culture, for the people, for the truth. And if you are Igbo, wherever you are in the world, remember this: your success is someone else's hope. Your giving is someone else's survival. Your return home, even if only in spirit, still matters. This is not just a documentary, it is a reminder. This is Igbo charity, and this is who we are.